Diagoist, Fáilte go Enlex podcast.
We're probably I think we're the only country to have a musical instrument as our national symbol.
The website Workaway, where you
What?
can stay places and work with different people. That I love food. So initially I kind of wanted to be a chef. It's weird because before COVID and when we knew it was coming, it was this calm before the storm. So they were trying to clear the hospital out so that we had enough beds for everyone. And it just makes you realize what is important or what's not or what we take for granted. I definitely think it makes you appreciate your own life so much more.
Go
It's a-
Rev Mahagot.
Go reh mahagut. Tere, how are you friends? So Tere is how to say hello in Estonian. Before that, I want to wish you a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. So I hope this holiday season give you a spirit and also a new year, a hope for a better future for you and family. And so in this episodes, I think it's episode 6. And if you don't speak Indonesian, please ignore my previous episode during this December because it's only in Indonesian. Sorry. So I will have a guest, my friends from Ireland that I met during my working holiday times in Australia before. I will try to explore her experience as dietitian especially, and how's life before and after COVID, especially when she working in the hospital. Also, her working holiday experience and her volunteering experience that I think will be insightful to hear. Let's hear her story. Rachel, what's up?
Hello. How are you?
Yeah, can you introduce a bit about yourself to our listener?
So yeah, my name is Rachel. I'm a dietitian from Ireland, but I met you and while I was doing a work and holiday visa in Australia.
Mm.
So I had graduated as a dietitian over 5 years ago now. So I worked for 2 years and then took a 2-year career break to travel and work in Australia. And now I've been back in Ireland for the past year.
Thank you, Rachel. So before we talk about dietitian, let's talk a light topic such as Irish in general.
Okay.
So
Okay.
what is interesting facts about your country, about Ireland?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was trying to think about this.
We're probably I think we're the only country to have a musical instrument as our national symbol.
Whoa, that's interesting. English is widely spoken in Ireland, but you have Irish language also. So
Yeah.
how is the Irish language used in the daily life?
It's not.
No, not really. Oh.
No. So we study Irish in school.
Mm.
So from the age of 5 up to 18, but the way it's taught, we just don't learn it very well. So no one can really speak it properly, apart from if you're a teacher or
Oh.
if you're a guard, because they have to speak Irish, I think.
Mm.
That could be wrong now as well, but I think but yeah, we just don't. So if you're in Ireland, you'll see Irish translations underneath English sayings or English guides,
Mm.
but we don't speak it on a day-to-day basis.
Okay. So
We tend to speak Irish when we're in other countries and we don't want people to understand us.
okay, so everywhere we go to Ireland, as long we can speak English, everything's good. We don't
Oh
need to,
yeah,
we don't need to learn.
definitely.
We don't need to learn
No.
Irish. Okay.
No.
Okay. Oh, it's
I think there's a video. There's a video. These comedians called Foyle, Arms, and Hog, and they have a video about this. No. Sorry, no, it's not. It's not them. There's another video I think that we must have seen in school or something, and it's about this guy who I think is from like China or somewhere in Asia, and he looks up Ireland. He's like, oh, I want to go to Ireland, so he learns Irish, and he thinks that we all speak Irish, so he learns Irish like fluently. But doesn't learn English, so then he comes to Ireland and starts speaking Irish, but no one can understand him. I must try find it and I'll send it on to you. It's very funny.
Oh, okay. Interesting. It reminds me of one Australian who living in Indonesia. He married with Indonesian woman, so he learned to speak Javanese. It's like regional language of Indonesian, one of biggest Indonesian island, Java, and he becomes superstar in YouTube because he like one of the less people who can speak Japanese, Javanese, not Japanese, Javanese, Javanese.
Oh my god!
The language of Java people, and he become famous in YouTube, especially for Indonesian people, because it's so quite funny. Interesting to see Australian English speaking people to speak Javanese, the local language, fluently.
That's so funny.
So yeah, it's like language is somehow like can make people interest in you.
Oh yeah, definitely. And like being able to speak another language is great. Like I had wish we had Irish as our first language and then like English as our second, because I think we would learn English, you know, because obviously it's so useful, and then we'd still have Irish, but sure.
Yeah. And I surprised in Europe, most of country has their own language. Like German speak German, French speaks French, Spanish, and then Portuguese, and then in Eastern Europe, they even has a lot of different languages. But it's interesting to know Europe has a lot of languages compared to maybe Asian country, or a lot of languages.
Yeah, but, it's nice. I think it's a nice thing for your own country to have your own language.
Yeah. Still talking about Irish. So, how about the climate there? How cold is it in winter?
Cold.
Cold.
So like usually during winter, it's maybe like it might get to like -5 at nighttime, and then like during the day it might be like 3 degrees, like 5 degrees.
Okay.
Like kind of similar to Melbourne's winter, to be honest, but it may be a little bit colder.
Oh, it's still better because in Estonia, it's much worse. It can be -20,
really?
-20 in the winter. Because Estonia is somehow close to Nordic countries, so the weather is somehow really similar with.
Oh my god, that's so cold.
Yeah, but last winter is one of the anomaly, weirdest winter, because it's not as cold as usual, and not much snow on last winter. The snow coming really late at the at the end of the winter time. Okay.
Was that your first time seeing snow, or had you seen it before?
I seen first at Mount Buller in Melbourne.
Oh yes, yeah. I remember. Yeah.
That's the first time before I left Melbourne.
So strange.
And now in Estonia, I saw more, because in Melbourne you cannot see snow in the city.
No, it's not cold enough.
Yeah. Okay. And how was the living cost, Rachel?
It's quite expensive. Yeah, I would say again, I think like living in Dublin is probably on a par with living in Melbourne, if not maybe a little bit more expensive, I think. Accommodation wise, like I would say you get better accommodation in Melbourne for cheaper than what you get in Dublin. It's such an expensive city. Like going out for drinks and stuff is expensive. Like it's hard because like you just get used to it, so then you kind of forget like what things should cost. I would say maybe a little bit more expensive than Melbourne.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I also heard from you before about the Gaelic. Gaelic sport. How
Oh yes.
how is it really? How Irish people really like it?
Oh, like Irish people love it.
Yeah,
So there's Gaelic football, and then there's hurling. I think I might have shown you a video of hurling before, did I?
hurling. It's
The
like
one with the stick.
yeah, with the stick. It's somehow like ice hockey, like
Yeah,
hockey.
kind of.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah, except it's like on a pitch. So
oh,
basically, like teams they can score like points if
mm,
they knock the ball over the bar of the goalposts,
mm,
or they can score goals, and goals are worth more than points are. So a
mm,
goal is worth like 3 points. So obviously teams want to get goals. Um, but Irish people love it. They really, really love it. And like the players, they all have normal jobs. Like that's not their job because they don't get paid to play that
mm.
sport. So they're all like teachers or like physios or doctors or whatever, like engineers. They're all whatever they want. They're all have normal jobs, so they just do it for the love of the sport, which I think, I don't know, it just makes it really even nicer.
Mm, okay.
Yeah, I know I don't play it because I can't play any sport. I'm useless. But I'd watch it.
Yeah, you
And like
don't.
everyone supports their own county and their own like town clubs or village clubs. So it's very like people are very proud of their club and their county, you know.
Mm, yeah. And Gaelic is more like rugby. Is if I remember.
It's a little bit, yeah, it's kind of like it's called Gaelic football, but it's yeah, because you can pick the ball up, so you can
Mm,
run with the ball in your hands for like a couple of steps, and
mm.
um it's kind of a hybrid, I would say.
Yeah. Oh, have you watched Australian football back in Australia before?
I did, yeah, I did.
Do you like it?
I did. It's
Mm.
I didn't really understand a lot of it. But
Yeah,
there's a few Irish people who would have went over to join like the Australian football team.
football team. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all about Irish in general. We know a lot of things like the national symbol, the climate, living costs, and the sports. And now we will talk about dietitian topic. What make you interest in this field?
Um, it's hard to know. Like, I think whenever I was in school, I was like, I love food. So what can I do and work with that I love food?
Mm,
So initially I kind of wanted to be a chef. And I think that just kind of faded out when I started working as a waitress. And I just saw how stressful it was and the long hours and the unsociable hours. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. So whenever like it comes to applying for courses and everything, I was kind of sitting down and was like, what do I want to do? And what can I do that's nutrition related? So I basically applied for any nutrition courses. So that the one that I did was the dietetics course. There was only one of them at the time. So I went to college and said that I picked that as my first one. And then I put like nutrition science and kind of any food science, nutrition related things. So I was like, whichever one I get, I'm going to be happy with. And I suppose other than that, like, I suppose like I'd been interested in healthcare and interested in like the health and keeping healthy and like helping people. So working, I suppose, in the healthcare industry was kind of appealing to me because so even if I wasn't going to be a dietitian, I was thinking maybe along the lines of like occupational therapy or speech and language therapy, something along the lines of like helping people.
mm. What is the big picture of dietitian? Is it food science or
So the
biology?
course,
Yeah.
not really. So the course that I did was called Nutrition and Dietetics. So it was split
Mm,
into two. So the nutrition side of things is very much kind of about like health promotion and like public health advice and like learning about like the vitamins and the minerals and the nutrients. And then the dietetics side of things, which I suppose is where I've went into, is more kind of the medical management of like different illnesses. So like for example, like diabetes or like celiac disease or like different conditions, like inflammatory bowel disease. And you like as a dietitian, you kind of you do both, but I suppose you have more knowledge around like the medical management of things.
so it's like mix of chemistry and biology.
Yeah, so it's a science degree. So we did like physics, chemistry and biology.
Mhm.
But the physics, I suppose, isn't really, it's not really related to it. So it was mainly chemistry and biology. So you had to have studied chemistry before you went to university to get into the course that I did.
Okay, let's move a little bit. Mm, I heard that you really care about health education, and you said you want to improve health education in Vanuatu and Guatemala. How
Yeah.
how is it works like? What did you do to achieve that mission?
So yeah, working in those kind of less developed countries was something that I kind of wanted to do for a while. And it was something that I thought about before I ever went to college or went to university.
Mhm.
Um, but I didn't really know how to go about it. So, and it's hard, I think, to get actual jobs. So there's really good like volunteer organizations in these kind of countries. So while I was in Australia, one of the girls that I lived with was like, I'm gonna go to Vanuatu. And I was like, okay, where's that? And she was like, I don't know. Do you want to come? And I was like, yeah. So
Wait, Vanuatu is near Australia, is it?
yeah. It's
It's
like beside Fiji.
beside Fiji. Oh
Mhm.
yeah, okay,
It's one of the Pacific Islands. Yeah.
Pacific.
So we looked into it, and there's an organization called IVI, which is like Involvement Volunteers International. And
Mhm.
they had like this specific healthcare project that was going on for like 2 weeks, where they were like looking for people with healthcare experience, nutrition experience, to go over as a group and kind of start a project where we would look at people's like blood pressure, blood sugar levels, their general like healthy eating habits or their eating habits, their weight and their heights, to kind of collect enough information. So I think, I could be wrong, but I think IVI's aim is to get enough information so that they can compile it all into a database and then present it to the government to show like where they're lacking and where they need more like health education to educate people on like healthy eating and the risks of high blood pressure and the risks of like diabetes and everything.
Mhm.
So that was our aim. That was our aim. So we went to different villages like every day and did like a blitz, so everyone in the village would know that that group was coming. So they turned up at like the town hall, and they'd just get all their measurements done, and then we'd go through like a healthy eating session with them. It was great. It was really rewarding.
Mm.
Yeah, it was great. And it was just very funny. Like sometimes we'd turn up and there'd be no one at the town hall. And then this woman would come and she'd be like, oh, it's fine, I'll go get people. And then like 20 minutes later, the whole village would be coming. It was just
Okay.
like word of mouth. She'd be like, I'll go get people. And then they'd all come. And then they like, they really enjoyed it and they really loved learning. And they, when you don't know what you don't know, like
Mhm.
it's just so far off their radar that they don't really know the basics, which is just a shame. Yeah. And then for Guatemala, I suppose what we had done there was so myself and my friend Fiona, again, who I was traveling with, we looked into, what's the name of that project? No, what's the name of the thing where you Workaway, the website Workaway, where you
What?
can like stay places and work with different people.
It's like travel and working volunteers. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm.
So we found a volunteer option on that as well. So it was with a project called Proyecto Ishkanan,
Mhm.
and it's basically this Canadian woman set up this project in a tiny little village called El Ramate in Guatemala. And she was encouraging anyone who had any kind of interest in like healthcare, so doctors, nurses, speech and language therapists, physios, dietitians, and people who had like an interest in say conservation management or like the environment, so people who could work with like improving the local community as well,
Mhm.
to come and help her to improve the services in this village. So she's been there for years and years, and her husband have like opened a clinic there, and they have like this like little kids group, so they ask teachers to come as well so they can like help teach the kids and do different things with the kids there as well. So we were there and we did the clinic in the morning time, and then we did the kids group in the afternoon. And so for the first while, what we did was kind of sit with the nurse and kind of get an idea of what information they need, and the same then with the schools to see what kind of information they'd like to learn with the kids as well. And so after a while, then we kind of sat down and thought, what can we do in the time that we have to help this community as best as I can? So we came up with like kind of like talks and demonstrations on like the sugar content of foods, or like basic advice that we could put up posters in the clinic. So things like issues like 10 steps to help with constipation, or 10 steps to get like more fiber into your diet, and explaining what it was, and tips for like hydration, and tips for losing weight and becoming more active, like really basic things that they probably just hadn't heard before.
Wow.
And yeah, so we didn't have a huge amount of time there, but like we felt like we did a lot in the small amount of time we had. And when people don't have a huge amount of knowledge on something, like everything little thing you do makes such a difference.
Wow. It was very meaningful work to do. Wow.
Yeah,
So
it was great, like, and it was really rewarding.
Is it similar in Guatemala as well?
It is. So I think in a lot of like, say, the countries that are still developing, like diabetes seems to be like a huge problem. So I think Vanuatu has like one of the highest rates of diabetes in the world, because they just don't have the knowledge on like the sugar content of foods, and they're like really heavily influenced by some industries, like things like selling fizzy drinks and like sugary biscuits, where they just haven't been told like the effect that it can have. So yeah, like, and it's the same then in Guatemala. And I suppose it depends on like money as well. So sometimes things that are like less healthy are cheaper and they're more accessible. So as like things are like fruit and vegetables might be more expensive, and like meat or like that kind of thing is more expensive. So sometimes the less healthy option is the cheaper option.
What do you think about the development of health education or even health industry in these past 10 years?
I think definitely people are more aware of like what they eat and how much exercise and stuff they get, and like what's good for them and what's bad for them. There's probably more talk about it, and like say things like social media have had a huge effect on it, that more and more people are talking about what's good for them, what's bad for them, what they shouldn't be doing, which is good. But I think it can obviously also have a negative impact in that people, like young people, can pick up on it the wrong way. So that like, they might become too heavily focused on like their appearance rather than focusing on their health. So I suppose that's one like negative impact of it. But then it can be really good in that like it can get people talking about things that they might not have known before. Or like I would follow some dietitians like on Instagram that post really good, simple information that can make a big difference to people, and they explain it really well. So, and they're obviously reaching a way wider audience than they'd ever be able to, like working in a clinic or working in a hospital. I think again, there's probably more like research and more studies going into nutrition than ever before because of the interest in it. And obviously there's more money, I suppose, to look into these things as well. So obviously as time goes on, like there's more money to like study these things, and there's also more resources to make it easier to study things.
Since the COVID coming now, and how it's changed the workflow, like, because I remember in hospital now you must wearing the PPE all the time.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we've just gotten used to that. So like we wear masks all the time, and depending on where you are, you might have to wear like gloves and the gowns and the goggles and everything. But masks you wear everywhere. But I feel like I've gotten so used to that I just forget I'm wearing it now at this stage. It's weird because before COVID and when we knew it was coming, it was this like calm before the storm. So like they were trying to clear the hospital out so that we had enough beds for everyone. And it was kind of like quieter because they had cancelled surgeries, they'd cancelled different treatments, and cancelled outpatient appointments. So people weren't coming into the hospital, and it was this calm because we were expecting to get really bad in the hospital, like what had happened in Italy and what we've seen in other countries. Thankfully, it didn't get that bad. Now, obviously, we were busy with coronavirus and COVID. And at one stage, we had a lot of people in ICU. So at that stage, we also had like people who couldn't come to work because they had to work from home because their kids weren't in childcare anymore. So that kind of, as well as having the stress of coronavirus patients, you also had the stress of trying to work out people working from home, less people in the department to see people in the hospital. So it was all the logistics of things that were also stressful, and not knowing. So like we had to come up with a lot of procedures and a lot of like policies and plans for if this happens, this is what we're going to do. And so it was a lot of planning and a lot of preparing for something that might happen. Now that we got over that period, it went quieter. Now I know it's getting busy again, but once the pandemic and the coronavirus patients kind of died down in the hospital and that kind of calmed down, we were so busy because they were catching up on all the surgeries, outpatient appointments. Like it was just crazy because there were so many people that like needed to be seen that obviously hadn't been seen in those months previously. So yeah, we were just playing catch up, and it was just a bit exhausting because obviously during the coronavirus, like when it was really at its worst, like everyone was just so exhausted and like mentally exhausted. And then we had to go from that straight into catching up on everyone that we had missed. So it was just crazy. It still is. It's a little bit calmer now, but now we're at the stage where we're starting to panic again that it's going to get worse again. So everyone's kind of planning for what's going to happen if that happens again. But we can't keep cancelling services either in the hospital. So I think that's their next kind of biggest concern. So it's been a tough year.
Yeah. So please let me give huge appreciation for you, for the medical team over the world, because this is the time when health become really, really the most important things in the world right now. Okay, it's talk topic to discuss right now. Let's talk a like topic again. And also, I saw you learn Spanish language. How it's come to learn Spanish?
So I studied Spanish in school for like 3 years, but it was a long time ago. It was when I was like 13 to like 15 years old. So I had a small little bit of it. And then whenever we went, so I was in South America for 5 months, and then Central America and Mexico for like 3 months. So I kind of learned a lot as I went along because you have to. And the app Duolingo is like the best thing ever.
Yeah, I love Duolingo also.
Yeah. Ooh. And there's also another app called Spanish Dict, which is really good as well. So between, I think, the apps and then like speaking to people, I just kind of picked it up then. Okay. It's not amazing.
Spanish what? Dictionary.
Dict. Yeah,
okay,
it's just called Spanish Dict. Yeah, DICT.
Okay, DICT. Okay.
Yeah.
Just make sure I didn't hear something else. Okay. Do you have childhood hobby that you already give up?
Oh, I used to do Irish dancing.
Dancing?
Irish dancing.
Irish dancing. What's the difference?
So it's a specific type of dancing. It's really like rigid. So if you look it up, there's like these girls that wear really nice, like green, or boys, I shouldn't just say girls. There's both. So girls will wear like really green dresses and guys will wear like these waistcoats and stuff. And it's in flat shoes or hard shoes. So the hard shoes are kind of like the tap dance shoes. And there's just set dances to like different kind of Irish music.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people will do it when they're kids, and a lot of people are kind of forced into it, I suppose, when they're kids. So I did that for a good few years when I was younger, but I gave it up.
Oh yeah, the uniform is so colorful.
Yeah, their uniforms are really, really nice, and there's like stuff embroidered on them to make them look really pretty.
So do you learn it during your school time before?
Some people actually learn it in school. Like I think people do it like in school. I did it outside of school. Probably more so because my friends were doing it, and I was like, I want to go as well.
And I also saw about your recent hair donation.
Oh,
Yeah, how is it supposed to be? I mean, how the
yeah.
hair you donate can come to the cancer
Charity.
community, I think.
Yeah, so the one that I am donating to is called the Little Princess Trust. So
Little
basically,
princess.
obviously, your hair needs to be a certain length. So that charity accepts hair that's 7 inches or longer, but ideally they want it to be ideally they would like it to be minimum 12 inches because obviously they can do more with that length of hair, or 30 centimeters, sorry.
Oh.
So mine was like, I think it was like maybe 35 centimeters, I think. So I had decided ages ago that I was going to donate it. And then obviously during lockdown, when no hairdressers was open, I was like, this is a great time to just let it grow. And that's it. So I got it to the length that it really, really needed to be cut. So yeah, you go to the hairdressers and they just tie it in like a ponytail and they cut it across the bobble. And then they give it back to you and you just post it off to this charity called the Little Princess Trust and you fill out your donation form and that's it. Then they use it to, so this charity in particular uses it to make wigs, majority for like kids with like childhood cancers and that kind of thing.
Yeah, is it only for a woman?
No, anyone can.
Men as well?
Yep, as long as it's long enough, anyone can donate it.
So I need to grow long hair
You need
first.
to go quite long.
Both of us are doing the same working holiday in Australia before. And I just want to know how working holiday experience works for you and what your expectation before come and what is the reality when you arrive.
I don't know if I really had any expectations going. I don't know what I was thinking really. I was just like, oh, let's just go and see what happens. And then I got there and I was like, shit, I don't think I want to be here. I just think I hadn't thought about like finding somewhere to live and like finding a job and all the like hard stuff at the beginning. I don't think I thought about that and no one told us about that. But then once all that was sorted, like so after we all had jobs and after we found somewhere to live, like it was great. Like it was so much fun. I think it was just carefree, it was just like a year of like working but not having to be like in a serious job with like a lot of responsibilities, which is just kind of what we needed, I think, just as a little break and just to, I don't know, just to live somewhere new was just exciting. And like I feel like Australia is one of those places that everyone talks about and everyone goes. And it's just kind of one of those places you want to see because you see it on TV, but it's so far away and it seems so exotic with their kangaroos and their snakes and their so it's cool to see. So I think when I went there, I didn't really think about working, but I wanted to like travel around and see it, which we did as well. So we went to the East Coast and we went to the West Coast. So like I think I got everything I wanted out of it. I didn't get to travel all of it, but I like to think I'll go back and see the rest of it.
So you spend first time in Melbourne when you do working holiday?
Yeah, so I was in Melbourne for 8 months.
8 months.
And then spent a week in Tasmania, 3 weeks doing the west coast of Australia and a month doing the west coast of, or doing the east coast of Australia.
Any difference when we're working in Australia as dietitian and in Ireland?
Like a little bit. Like I'd say the hospitals are probably a little bit better than in Ireland. There's probably more nursing staff in there as well. Like the general day-to-day job was probably pretty much the same. Just I'd say a little better funded healthcare system.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So then, how is it feel after you finish working holiday? Like you got some saving from your work and then you free to go to anywhere again. How is it?
Yeah. I didn't You know what? I feel like because if I was like leaving Australia to come home to Ireland, I would have been like really upset. But
Mhm.
because we were leaving to go travel again, I feel like I didn't dwell on it too much. And a lot of people that we were friends with were leaving as well. Like it was kind of like one of those things where you're friends with other people who are on working holiday visas and everyone kind of moves on and everyone leaves. So you don't feel too sad because the life that you're leaving wouldn't even be there anymore. Do you know? Like the people that I was friends with there aren't even there anymore. So the majority of them anyway.
Mm.
So I didn't really feel too sad. I kind of just felt excited to go travel again.
Oh, and because I know you moving a lot from one place to another place, how did you manage your stuff, your
I lived
luggage?
out of a little bag.
So you're some kind of minimalist, like not bring too much thing.
Yeah, so we had like a little backpack, like
Yeah.
or not a little backpack, I suppose. I think mine weighed like 13 or 14 kilos, but I
Mm.
lived out of that for a hell of a long time. I suppose you don't need as much, like all you need is like shorts and a t-shirt. So you just learn to live with way less than
Mm.
what you need when you're in a city, you know?
Mm.
Um, or where you're living somewhere, like you just learn to like not care and like no one knows you, so you don't really care what you look like, and
Mm.
it's too hot to wear makeup, and it just none of that matters. So you just kind of don't care as long as you have something to put on. You just go about your business and do what you want because that's not the priority. What you look like.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah,
especially in this.
it definitely made me be more minimalistic when I got home as well.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I think that's all about working holiday, and let's move on to volunteering because you told a lot of things about volunteer since you were a high school. Yeah, so when is your first volunteering experience?
That
With
so it
your
was when I was in high school. We
school,
went to Gambia for the two
Gambia.
weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like in college, I suppose I didn't really do that much in terms of like doing anything in other countries. And then it was only then Vanuatu and Guatemala when we were away as well.
Mm. So
Yeah.
it's volunteering also part of the Irish culture. Like they really appreciate people who do volunteer.
I
Yeah.
think so.
Mm.
I suppose it depends on what circles you move in.
Oh.
Like some people are probably really, really into it. Other people probably would never think about it. But like there's a lot of volunteer organizations that do a lot of really good work, especially with like homeless people or like elderly people who are alone. Like there is a lot that you can get involved in.
Mm. Yeah, so and most volunteering abroad is in underdeveloped country,
Mhm.
isn't it? And uh, how do you feel when you first leaving your home country with everything is good, and then you move to country with uh, a lot of limitation, a lot of disadvantage. Yeah,
I
how do
think
you
it just
manage?
makes you really, I think it makes you just really appreciate where you live. Like, and I suppose it makes you realize then as well, like the things that we take for granted and the things that we think are important that are really not, you know, and like how we live our lives so differently to someone else. Like, I remember when I went to Vanuatu, I actually flew back. I was there for a month in total. And then I flew back to into Melbourne, and it was like a Saturday night at like 1 o'clock in the morning.
Mhm.
And like I'd been in Vanuatu for a month where it was like, you know, a tiny little village, and like people didn't really have that much, and you know, it was just really quiet. And then come back there at like 1 o'clock in the morning, and there was like people wandering around the street like blind drunk and like shouting at each other and all
Mm.
dressed up to the nines. I was like, this is like literally a world
Mm.
apart from where I've just been for the past month. And it just makes you realize, like, or just makes you think about like what is important or what's not, or what we take for granted. I definitely think it makes you appreciate your own life so much more.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's mental, like, you know.
and it makes somehow makes us more. After finishing volunteering, we got a new skill. I mean, not not only the technical skill or skill that we already have, but also the skill to understanding people. Like
Yeah,
it,
definitely.
because volunteering is about understanding difference in in culture, difference in new place, differences in many ways. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's really
Have you done much volunteering?
yeah, in Australia I did like one time volunteering as well, and also volunteering in the Finis, the
Oh yeah.
second hand shop, I think. Yeah,
Oh yeah, yeah.
I also did that in Darwin on that time, Darwin,
That's
Australia.
really nice.
Yeah, and in Melbourne I did with the multicultural hub, the place for community.
Oh yes.
Yeah, community finding information, finding job, finding uh, help. So yeah, it's really great experience.
Yeah. I think it makes you feel good about yourself as well.
Mm. And the latest my volunteer experience is in Vietnam. So finally, for the first time, I did something related to Southeast Asia.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's great. What
yeah.
did you
So
do in Vietnam?
teaching kids,
Oh, that's so
teaching,
nice.
basically teaching science and English. But the things that made me grateful is the bonds with the kids. Kids is one of the I mean, they're still pure. They speak honestly. So yeah,
Yeah.
from that
Oh, that's
experience,
really nice.
somehow it makes me really uh, have a bonds with them, even
Yeah.
we didn't meet anymore.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh.
yeah. And so how is your latest volunteering activity, Rachel?
So I haven't really done any kind of volunteering recently because I think the biggest concern was work and the stress of work. So anything else kind of been pushed to the back burner. But so what I'm looking into now at the moment, for the next little while is to see if I can volunteer with a charity called Alone, which
Alone.
basically works to try give elderly people who live alone some kind of like companionship, so that you would either like, I'd say now with coronavirus, you would probably ring them and just have a conversation with them. Normally what you do is like go to their house and visit them and have a little chat with them and just kind of keep them company for a while.
Mm.
So that is something that I think I'm going to look into now to be like a realistic thing to be able to do while we're still in Ireland.
Okay, thank you, Rachel, for sharing your volunteering experience. And somehow I also share it too. And let's close this episode. How about book recommendation?
I suppose a book recommendation I have just for general life
Yeah, how about in
would
general?
be it's called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
Oh, okay. I know. Mark Manson.
Very good.
Yeah.
It's very good.
Yeah.
I can't remember who wrote it, which is terrible. But it's basically just about it's kind of like a self-help book, but it's a funny self-help book, and it's just kind of about like only putting your energy into stuff you actually care about and not trying to do things that you don't care about but you think that you should be doing or that you think people expect of you. But so yeah, it's very good.
Yep.
And very
Yeah.
funny.
I also remember you also podcast listener when we talk in Melbourne.
So
Yeah. Do you still
yeah,
hear some podcasts?
I do. I love podcasts. There's loads I listen to. So I listen to Case Files, True Crime, which is just like it's just like true crime cases.
You told me before, I remember.
Yeah.
True crime.
What else do I listen to? I listen to a thing called No Such Thing as a Fish.
Okay.
And it's basically these four people who talk about their favorite random fact of the week.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very funny as well. So they're my two favorites at the moment.
Yep. Thank you for recommendation. Maybe quick tips how to survive in this situation from your experience.
God, any quick tips? I don't know. Try stay in touch with people, stay in contact with people.
Yeah.
Eat as well as you can. Go for walks, get out and get fresh air. And try find something that you can do with a new skill, even if it's reading, a new hobby. Pick up something that will distract you from everyday life. And don't watch the news too much.
Yeah, I agree. Guru mah agud. Guru mah.
That's not bad. Not bad. Go
It's a
Rev Mahagot.
go reh mahagud.
Yeah.
It's like goodbye. See you.
No, it's thank you.
Thank you. Oh, it's thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Goodbye is slán.
Slam?
Slán.
Slan. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds weird.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's all, Rachel. Thank you
Thanks so much.
thank you for coming to my podcast and sharing
Having
your
me.
story. Hope our listener can get something about Iris, about nutrition, food science, dietitian.
Thanks so
And
much. I hope that was okay.
yeah, thank you and goodbye.
Thank
Okay.
you. Slán.
Son.
Slán.